The techniques and the strategies that I'm going to be showing you are in fact techniques and strategies that you can use anywhere in the world. And I have spent the last 23 years buying and selling businesses. So the question to you is, if you could buy a business without spending any of your own money, would you do it? And if you could do it and you knew how to do it, how many businesses would you buy if you didn't have to spend your own money? As many as you could, because why wouldn't you? Now, when we buy a business, we're solving 4 problems. The first problem that we're going to solve is the growth problem. So the growth problem in any and every business is that you reach a certain point and the business hits a plateau. It doesn't seem to grow any faster. So you run more Facebook ads, you do Instagram, you hire more salespeople, and whatever you do, the business just doesn't seem to grow. And if you are entrepreneurial, that is a very frustrating situation to be in, because you're stuck with a business that just isn't exciting anymore. So when we buy a business, we solve that growth problem. So let me give you an example. Let's say that it's taken you 5 years to get to £5 million, euros of sales. And you're kind of stuck at that plateau and you want to get to 7 million. You want to get to 10 million, to 15, to 20 million. Now you can do that via organic growth. More salespeople, more advertising. Or you can say to yourself, let's find a business that does 3 million in sales, 5 million, 7 million, 10 million. Let's buy that business and suddenly we've doubled the size of our company overnight. So we can solve the growth problem via acquiring companies that are the same size or larger than our own, and we can get that growth in the next 12 months rather than waiting for years for it to happen. So we can solve that growth problem very, very quickly. The second problem that we can solve via acquisition is the speed problem. Now, if you're anything like me, I look in the mirror in the morning and I don't see a face that's getting any younger. And I'm in a hurry. I want to do things now. I don't want to wait years and years and years. And if you spent years building a company and you feel the same way as me, you want to get that growth as quickly as possible. You don't want to wait years. Well, how long does it take to buy a business? Well, people have different opinions about how long it takes to buy a business. But in terms of the number of hours that you, as the principal of the inquiring business, put into it, maybe hours on the phone, on emails, on meetings, the answer depends on whether you have a process. You see, if you have a process to buy a business, then it's an awful lot faster than if you don't have a process. You see, if you don't have a process, you make it up as you go along. You think about it all the time. You use trial and error. You make mistakes. You take 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And I think that if you don't have a process, it's going to take you at least 100 hours to buy a business. But if you do have a process, then we can shortcut this 100 hours, follow the process, and I have been averaging 20 hours of time to buy a company. That's 20 hours of me on the phone, emails, and meetings. I outsource all of the accountancy. I outsource all of the due diligence. I outsource all of the legal work because that's not my skill set. I'm not qualified to do that. Let me tell you what I do as a business buyer. I set the strategy. What types of businesses are we going to buy? How many of them are we going to buy? When are we going to buy them? I then do the deal sourcing. The deal sourcing is looking for the right businesses to buy. Something which I think you should bear in mind is your success as a business buyer is partly going to depend upon what we call deal flow. Deal flow is how many deals you have in your pipeline. If you've only got 1 deal in your pipeline, don't you think the pressure is on to make that happen? You feel a certain amount of pressure to make that deal happen. You don't want to be that person who's under pressure. So if you can develop a pipeline of deals, if you can develop deal flow, then it does several things. It makes you an outstanding negotiator. You see, if you've got deal flow, and that deal starts to not look like the best deal or the deal you don't want to do, you can walk away. You can say no. If you've only got one deal in your pipeline, you can't say no because all that hard work is going to go to waste and you're back where you started. But if you look at 6 businesses, all in the same sector, and you compare their financials and you meet 6 owners, you can start to decide which are the better businesses that fit your strategy, fit your personality, and fit the outcomes that you want. Buying a business is just so rewarding, and I put together a free training showing you exactly how I do it. If you look in the video description below this video, there is a link. You click the link, you're taken through to the training, watch the training, and I'll show you exactly how to buy a business successfully. The third problem that we're going to solve is the hassle problem. The hassle problem is that typically when you have a business and you are the operator of that business, there's a lot of hassle in your life. And where does the hassle come from? From the people. Yeah, absolutely. It comes from the staff. Ironically, it comes from the people that you pay every month, create the hassle and the stress in your life. It's crazy, but it's true. The fourth problem we're going to solve is the money problem. Now, we might say all day long that we're in business because we love the business and we're passionate about the business. But we also want to make some money as well, don't we? We want to make a little bit of money along the way as well. In fact, some of us might want to make a lot of money along the way. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to make a lot of money. Why not? If you can add value, if you can buy businesses, if you can sell businesses, you deserve to make a lot of money. But what most operational business owners do is they turn up at the office every day, and at the end of the month, they pay all the salaries, they pay all of the suppliers, and they see what's left over, and what's left over is theirs. And they say, well, it wasn't a very good month this month. But you don't worry about that because next month is going to be better. The optimism of the business owner that every month is going to be better than this month. Next month will be better. Next year will be better. But when you start thinking like a deal maker, when you start thinking as a business buyer, sure, all your staff get paid, all your suppliers get paid, but there's a lot more money for you to get paid as well. And the richest people in business are not the operational business owners who turn up every day. The richest people in business are the deal makers, are the private equity people, are the people who buy businesses and let other people have the hassle and the operational problems. They let other people deal with those details. They make the most money. So if you're going to be in business for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, for the rest of your working life, then why not be in business in such a way that allows you to make the most money during that time? Believe me, your children will thank you for it. So how do we do this? Well, there are 3 rules. I believe that when you buy a business, you should not be risking your family home. You should not be risking your life savings. You should not put everything on the line for one acquisition. So the first rule is, when we buy a business, we're going to buy a business either with no money down on completion or none of your own money in the deal. We're going to get other people to finance it, or we're not going to put any money in on completion. So rule number 1 is you're not going to use any of your own money. Rule number 2 is you're not going to borrow money from a bank. You see, if you go to a business broker to buy a business, they'll say, well, do you have any equity in your house? Borrow some money against that equity in your house and give that money to the seller of the business. They'll give you the shares of the business. You now own the business. They take all of your money and go off on the world cruise, which is wonderful for them, not so wonderful for you. So every transaction that we do, we de-risk the transaction to the point that if something does go wrong, it's not going to ruin our lives. And the third rule is this: when we buy a business, we never, ever manage it ourselves. Because if you manage it yourself, you'll run out of time, you'll run out of energy, you'll run out of patience, you'll start to hate it, and you'll wonder why you ever bought it. When buying a business, you need a great lawyer on your team. So why not use mine? His name is John Andrews, and his details are on the screen. So let me give you some examples of how we fund an acquisition without using our own money. So the first type of business that we buy that doesn't involve any of our own cash is what we call a distressed business. Now you might think, why would you want to buy a distressed business? Because a distressed business has to have, by definition, problems. Why would you want to buy problems? Let me tell you why. What you think is a problem in your business, you think is an opportunity. What you think is a problem that you just cannot solve, you found the answer to years ago. I like businesses where the business owner says, oh my goodness, all these problems, I'll just hand you the keys. Take the business from me because I don't want these problems anymore. And I look at those problems and I think to myself, I can solve those problems. Those are easy problems to solve. So that's the first type of business that we look for. So let me give you an example of a transaction that doesn't involve any money of my own. So there's a business that we're buying. The price that we've agreed for the business is this works, for example, with a larger business and a smaller business, doesn't make any difference, £2.3 million. So £2.3 million is what we are paying for the business. Now in the balance sheet of the business, there is £1.6 million of property. So we've agreed that on completion, the day that we take legal ownership, the owners will receive £1.6 million for the property. So they'll walk away with £1.6 million minus any debt that might be on the property. The balance of the 2.3 million, 700,000, is being paid for the business itself, for the business that produces a profit. And we've agreed a structure where we pay that £700,000 over a 5-year period. So here's a question. Where does that £700,000 come from? Does it come from your pocket? No. Does it come from the bank? It comes from the cash flow of the business that we're buying. In other words, the business is financing its own acquisition. Quick question for you. If you could buy a business where the business funds its own acquisition, how many businesses would you buy? As many as you could find where the funding for the acquisition comes from the business itself. So you may be asking yourself, Jonathan, you've missed out a very important part. What about the 1.6 million for the property? You've forgotten the 1.6 million for the property. Well, I don't want the property. I'm not interested in that commercial property. So I found a property investor who wants to buy the property. So it's his 1.6 million that goes to the sellers on completion. He buys the property, I rent the property from him. So I've just done a £2.3 million acquisition, and how much of my money went into the deal? Zero. But you might be thinking, Jonathan, you've got legal fees. You've got due diligence fees. You've got accountancy fees. You've got tax advice. Yep, I have. Do I pay those out of my own pocket? No, I don't. All of those invoices go to the company that I'm buying after I bought it, and that company that I'm buying pays all my fees. So how much money have I put into this deal? Absolutely zero. This is what I do. This is how I do it. It's completely contrary to what a lot of people will tell you. A lot of people will tell you that you have to go and raise a lot of finance, you have to sign personal guarantees, use your property as security. See, the bottom line is, anyone can buy a business. All you've got to do is go and borrow the money, use your home as security, write the check, and give the money to the owner of the business, and they will give you the business in return. Anyone can do that. My suggestion, my slightly controversial suggestion, is that that would be a really stupid thing to do. You're going to run out, it doesn't matter how much money you've got, you're going to run out of money. So why don't we structure every deal that we do like I've just described, And then you can buy one business, two businesses, three businesses, four businesses, let someone else manage them, and you just enjoy the cash flow from those businesses every single month. And then, once you've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 businesses in the same sector, merge them into one larger business, sell it, and make millions of pounds in the sale. And that's what I've done time and time again over the years.